The sky above Earth changed on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. 3,000 alien warships appeared from nowhere, blocking out the sun over every major city on the planet. They were massive things, dark and angular, covered in weapons that glowed with strange purple light. The people of Earth looked up and saw death hanging in their sky. Commander Zorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He was a Vexari, a species of tall insectoid creatures with hard shells and 4 arms. His people had conquered 17 civilizations across the galaxy. They had never lost a war. They had never shown mercy. And now, they had come for Earth. Zorath looked at the blue and green planet below him and felt nothing but contempt. His scouts had studied these humans for 2 days. They had watched their news broadcasts, their social media, their endless arguments about meaningless things. The humans were divided into hundreds of nations that could barely agree on anything. They fought wars over land, over religion, over resources. They were primitive, violent, and weak. "Open a channel to the planet," Zorath ordered. His voice was deep and cold, like stones grinding together. His communications officer obeyed. Within seconds, every screen, every radio, every phone on Earth carried the same message. "People of Earth," Zorath began. "I am Commander Zorath of the Vexari Empire. Your planet is now under our control. You will surrender unconditionally within 6 standard hours. Any resistance will be met with complete destruction. We have the power to turn your world into ash. Do not test us. You have 6 hours." The message ended. Zorath sat back in his command chair and waited. He had done this many times before. The pattern was always the same. First came panic, then attempts at negotiation, then surrender. It was boring, really. These primitive species never surprised him. 8,000 miles below, in a mountain base in Colorado, Admiral Lisa Martinez received the transmission. She was sitting at her desk, eating a turkey sandwich, when the alien's face appeared on her screen. She watched the message without expression, chewing slowly. When it ended, she took another bite. Her aide, Lieutenant Kevin Park, burst through the door. He was young, maybe 25, and his face was pale with fear. "Admiral, did you see that? The aliens, they're demanding surrender." "What do we do?" Lisa finished chewing and wiped her mouth with a napkin. She looked at the young man and saw the terror in his eyes. She had seen that look before. Many times. In many wars. It was the look of someone who thought the world was ending. "Kevin," she said calmly, "I need you to do something for me." "Anything, Admiral." "Should I contact the President? Mobilize the fleet? Prepare the nuclear response?" Lisa shook her head. "No. I need you to get me some popcorn. The butter kind." Kevin stared at her. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Popcorn, ma'am?" "Yes, and make sure it's fresh. I hate stale popcorn." Kevin didn't move. He couldn't understand what was happening. There were 3,000 alien warships in orbit, and his commanding officer wanted snacks. Lisa sighed and stood up. She walked to the large screen on her wall and pulled up a display of the alien fleet. The ships were impressive, she had to admit. Big, scary, designed to terrify primitive civilizations into submission. But Lisa Martinez had been a soldier for 30 years. She had fought in 3 wars, commanded fleets in battles that killed thousands, and watched friends die in her arms. She had seen scary things before. This was just another Tuesday. "Kevin," she said, "let me explain something to you. Do you know why those aliens chose to invade Earth? Because they want our resources? Our planet? No. They chose us because they think we're weak. They watched us for 2 days and saw humans fighting humans. They saw our divisions, our conflicts, our chaos, and they thought that meant we would be easy to conquer." Lisa smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. They made a mistake. She pressed a button on her console. "Get me General Santos, Admiral Chen, and Director Williams. Emergency meeting in 10 minutes. She turned back to Kevin. And get me that popcorn. This is going to be fun to watch. In orbit, Commander Zorath waited for the humans to respond. He expected pleas for mercy, offers of tribute, desperate attempts to negotiate. What he received was silence. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 3. No messages came from the planet below. His tactical officer, a nervous Vexari named Kryn, approached him. Commander, the humans have not responded to our demands. Zorath's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Perhaps they did not understand the message. Send it again. The message was broadcast again. And again. After the 4th time, Zorath began to feel something he had not felt in centuries. Confusion. What are they doing down there? He demanded. Are they mobilizing their military? Preparing their weapons? Kryn checked his sensors. No, Commander. Their military forces remain in their bases. Their nuclear weapons are not being activated. There is no sign of preparation for war. Then what are they doing? Kryn hesitated. They appear to be watching us, Commander. Watching us? Yes. Their communication networks are filled with images of our fleet. They are discussing us, sharing pictures, making jokes. Kryn paused, clearly uncomfortable. One of their terms is trending globally. They call it Alien Invasion Watch Party. Zorath stood up from his chair. His forearms trembled with rage. They are making jokes? We threaten to destroy their world. And they make jokes? It appears so, Commander. Zorath walked to the viewing window and looked down at Earth. The planet looked peaceful. Beautiful even, with its blue oceans and white clouds. But somewhere down there, billions of humans were looking up at his fleet and laughing. This was not how conquered species behaved. This was wrong. This was very, very wrong. After 6 hours had passed, a single transmission finally came from Earth. Zorath ordered it played on the main screen. A human female appeared, middle-aged, with short gray hair and calm eyes. She was eating something from a bowl. Hey there, Commander Zorax, or whatever your name is, she said casually. Sorry for the late reply. We were busy making popcorn. Anyway, about your surrender demand. We're going to pass on that, but thanks for the offer. Oh, and your ships look really cool on camera. Very scary. Good job on the design. She put another piece of popcorn in her mouth. Talk soon. The transmission ended. Zorath stood in silence, staring at the empty screen. In all his years of conquest, in all the civilizations he had crushed, no one had ever responded to him like that. No one had ever been so casual, so dismissive, so completely unafraid. For the first time in his long life, Commander Zorath felt a small seed of doubt take root in his mind. Perhaps these humans were not what they seemed. Perhaps he had made a terrible mistake, but it was too late to turn back now. The invasion had begun. The first Vexari landing ships touched down across Earth 12 hours after the invasion began. Commander Zorath had decided that since the humans refused to surrender, he would send soldiers to take the planet by force. He expected fierce resistance, desperate fighting, the chaos of war. What his soldiers found was something very different. In a small town in Kansas, a landing ship came down in a cornfield owned by a man named Danny Kowalski. Danny was 53 years old, with a thick gray beard and hands roughened by decades of farm work. He had served in the military when he was young, seen combat, and came home to spend the rest of his life growing corn and raising cattle. Nothing much surprised him anymore. When the alien ship landed in his field, crushing about an acre of his best corn, Danny did not run. He did not hide. He walked out onto his porch, sat down in his old wooden chair, and watched. He had a shotgun across his lap and a cooler of beer beside him. The ship's door opened, and 7 Vexari soldiers walked out. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with dark shells and multiple arms. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. They looked terrifying. Danny took a sip of his beer. The squad leader, a Vexari named Torvax, approached the farmhouse. His training told him to expect an ambush. Traps, armed resistance. Instead, he found one old human sitting on a wooden platform, drinking some kind of liquid from a metal container. "Human," Torvax said, his voice harsh and mechanical through his translator. "You will come with us. You are now a prisoner of the Vexari Empire." Danny looked at the alien for a long moment. Then he reached into his cooler and pulled out another beer. "You want a drink? You look thirsty." Torvax did not understand. He checked his translator, thinking it might be malfunctioning. "I said you are a prisoner. You must obey." "I heard you," Danny said. "But you just crushed my corn. And the polite thing to do is sit down and talk about it. You want a beer or not?" The Vexari soldiers looked at each other. This was not in their training. Their invasion manual covered many situations, but it did not cover this. It did not explain what to do when a human offered you drinks. Torvax hesitated. Then, slowly, he reached out and took the beer. He did not know why he did it. Something about the old human's calm manner made him feel strange. Off balance. "What is this substance?" he asked, examining the can. "Beer," Danny said. "It's made from grain. Helps you relax. Go on, try it." Torvax opened the can and took a small sip. The liquid was cold and bitter, and unlike anything he had ever tasted. It was not unpleasant. "Sit down," Danny said, gesturing to the porch steps. "Tell me about yourself. Where are you from?" This was wrong. This was all wrong. Torvax knew he should arrest this human, take him to the processing center, follow protocol. But instead, he found himself sitting down on the wooden steps. His soldiers watched in confusion as their leader began talking to a farmer about the Vexari homeworld. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, similar scenes were playing out across the planet. In Tokyo, Japanese teenagers were taking pictures with confused Vexari soldiers. In London, a crowd had gathered around a landing ship, treating it like a street performance. In Sydney, someone had already set up a food truck selling alien invasion special meat pies. Commander Zorath received reports from the surface, and each one made less sense than the last. "Commander," Kryn said nervously, "Squad 7 reports that they have been invited to a barbecue." "A what?" "A barbecue, Commander. It is a human ritual where they cook meat over fire. The local humans are feeding our soldiers." Zorath slammed his claw against his console. "Tell them to stop eating and start conquering." "I have tried, Commander, but the humans keep offering them food. Our soldiers do not know how to respond." In the Pacific Ocean, a different kind of scene was unfolding. The USS Defiance, humanity's most advanced stealth destroyer, moved silently through the water toward a position beneath the alien fleet. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display. Marcus was 41 years old, tall and lean, with dark skin and sharp eyes. He had commanded ships for 15 years and had a reputation for being calm under pressure. Right now, as he looked at 3,000 enemy warships, he felt perfectly calm. "Status report," he said. His executive officer, Commander Amy Santos, checked her screens. "All systems ready, Captain. Stealth field is holding. The aliens haven't detected us. And the kinetic accelerators?" Chief Engineer Natalie Russo's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. "Loaded and ready, Captain. I've got 20 rounds in each launcher. Pure tungsten, moving at about 15% of light speed. Nothing in the galaxy can stop them." Marcus smiled. The Vexari had shields designed to stop energy weapons, lasers and plasma bolts, and all the standard weapons used across the galaxy. But humanity had never stopped using kinetic weapons. Bullets, railguns, simple metal moving very, very fast. The aliens thought these weapons were primitive and outdated. They were wrong. "Hold position," Marcus ordered. "We wait for Admiral Martinez's signal." Back on the surface, Danny Kowalski had somehow convinced the entire Vexari squad to stay for dinner. His wife, Maria, had come out of the house, taken one look at the alien soldiers, and decided they looked hungry. Within an hour, she had fired up the grill and was cooking steaks for everyone. Torvax sat at a wooden table with his soldiers, eating meat and drinking beer, and tried to understand what was happening. He had invaded hundreds of worlds. He had killed thousands of enemies, but he had never met anyone like these humans. "Why are you not afraid?" he asked Danny. Danny shrugged. "Should I be? We are conquering your planet. We could kill you at any moment." "You could try," Danny said simply. "But right now, you're eating my wife's cooking. Seems rude to kill someone who's feeding you." Torvax had no response to this. He looked at the steak on his plate, at the beer in his hand, at the setting sun painting the Kansas sky in shades of orange and gold. He thought about his orders, his mission, his duty to the Empire. Then he thought about how good the steak tasted. "Your wife," Torvax said slowly, "is an excellent cook." Maria beamed at him. "Thank you, honey. You want another steak? You're too skinny." Torvax looked down at his armored body. No one had ever called him skinny before. He was a warrior, a soldier, a conqueror. "Yes," he heard himself say, "I would like another steak." As the sun set on the first day of the alien invasion, something strange was happening across Earth. The invaders were being conquered, not by weapons, but by hospitality, by food and drinks and friendly conversation, by humans who refused to act like victims. And somewhere in orbit, Commander Zorath watched and wondered what he had gotten himself into. 3 days into the invasion, Commander Zorath had not slept. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at reports that made no sense, trying to understand what was happening on the planet below. His invasion was falling apart, but not in any way he had ever seen before. There were no battles, no heroic last stands, no desperate resistance. Instead, there was something far worse. There was friendliness. "Report from Squad 12 in Brazil," Kryn said, reading from his screen. "They say the local humans have taught them something called soccer. They have formed a team and are playing against the human team tonight." Zorath said nothing. His mandibles clicked in a pattern that meant deep frustration. "Report from Squad 8 in Japan," Kryn continued. "The humans have given them something called anime. Our soldiers have been watching it for 16 hours straight. They refuse to return to their posts." "Report from Squad 3 in Italy. The humans are teaching them to make something called pasta. Squad leader Vorak says it is the most delicious thing he has ever eaten. He is requesting permission to stay on Earth permanently." "Enough!" Zorath shouted. He swept his arm across his console, sending equipment crashing to the floor. "This is not an invasion. This is a vacation. What is wrong with our soldiers?" Kryn looked at his commander with something like fear in his eyes. "I do not know, Commander. The humans are not fighting us. They are being nice to us. Our soldiers do not know how to handle it." Zorath walked to the viewing window and looked down at Earth. The planet looked so peaceful, so innocent. But it was destroying his invasion without firing a single shot. "Fine," he said, his voice cold and hard. "If the humans will not learn fear from our soldiers, they will learn it from our ships. Prepare the orbital bombardment. We will destroy one of their cities. That will remind them who is in charge." Kryn hesitated. "Commander, is that wise? The destruction of a city might provoke a response. That is what I want. I want them to fight us. I want them to resist. I want something that makes sense." Zorath turned to his weapons officer. "Target the city, called Chicago. Level it." The weapons officer nodded and entered the commands. On screens across the bridge, targeting systems activated. 17 dreadnoughts aimed their main weapons at the American city below. In seconds, millions of humans would die. The weapons officer pressed the firing button. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Still nothing. On his screen, an error message appeared. It showed a strange image, a yellow circle with a smiling face, and text that said, "Nice try. Better luck next time." "What is this?" Zorath demanded. "What has happened to our weapons? What has happened to our weapons?" Across the fleet, similar scenes were unfolding. Weapons systems shut down. Navigation controls stopped responding. On every screen, the same smiling face appeared. 8,000 miles below, in a small apartment in California, a young man named Chris Delgado leaned back in his gaming chair and grinned. He was 24 years old, skinny, with messy black hair, and eyes red from staring at screens for 3 days straight. Empty energy drink cans surrounded his desk like a small fortress. Too easy, Chris muttered to himself. He reached for another energy drink and took a long sip. Chris was not a soldier. He was not a spy. He was a hacker who had spent most of his life breaking into computer systems for fun. When the aliens arrived, the government had contacted him with a simple request. Could he get into the alien ship's computers? He said he would try. It took him 4 hours. The Vexari used encryption that was complex by galactic standards, but simple by human ones. Their security systems were designed to stop species that had developed computing technology in a logical, orderly way. They were not designed to stop humans, a species that had invented hacking, viruses, and cyber warfare. A species that had spent decades learning to break into each other's computers for profit, revenge, and entertainment. Chris had named his virus lol nice try.exe. It had spread through the Vexari fleet like a disease, hiding in their systems, waiting for his command. When Commander Zorath ordered the bombardment of Chicago, Chris pressed a button and shut down every weapon in the fleet. He thought about calling someone to report his success. Instead, he started a video game. He had been grinding for a rare item, and the alien invasion had interrupted his progress. Back in orbit, Commander Zorath was experiencing something he had never felt before. Panic. "How is this possible?" he shouted. "Our systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. How did these primitives hack our ships? Our system. No one had an answer. The technical officers ran diagnostics, but everything they tried failed. The smiling face remained on their screens, mocking them. Kryn approached his commander with another report. His hands were shaking. "Commander, I have intercepted more human communications. They know what has happened. They know our weapons are disabled. And, are they mobilizing their military? Preparing to attack?" "No, Commander." Kryn swallowed hard. "They are celebrating. They have created a new betting pool on how long we will last. They are also selling merchandise." "Merchandise?" "Yes. Shirts, cups, small statues. One popular item says, 'I survived the Vexari invasion, and all I got was this stupid t-shirt.'" Zorath felt his legs grow weak. He sat down in his command chair and tried to think. Nothing made sense anymore. Nothing followed the patterns he knew. "Commander," another officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet, from the human military. Put it on screen." Admiral Lisa Martinez appeared, sitting in her office with the same calm expression she always wore. Behind her, Zorath could see maps and displays showing his entire fleet. "Hello again, Commander," Lisa said. "I hope you've noticed that your weapons don't work anymore. That's our fault. Sorry about that." She did not sound sorry at all. "Now, I'm going to give you a choice. You can take your ships and leave our system. We'll let you go without a fight. Or you can stay, and we can show you what humans do to people who threaten our home." She paused and took a sip from a cup of coffee. "I should warn you, Commander. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. War is not something we fear. It's something we practice. It's something we study. We've gotten very, very good at it." She smiled, and Zorath felt something cold run through his body. "Your choice. You have 1 hour." The transmission ended. Zorath sat in silence, surrounded by his officers, looking at a fleet that had suddenly become powerless. For the first time in his life, Commander Zorath considered retreat. For the first time in his life, he wondered if he had finally met an enemy that even the Vexari Empire could not defeat. But his pride would not let him run. The Vexari did not retreat. The Vexari did not surrender. "Send all landing forces back to the ships," he ordered. "Recall every soldier. We will fix our systems and crush these humans with pure force. We still have 3,000 ships. They cannot stop us all." But even as he gave the order, Zorath knew something had changed. The confidence was gone from his voice. The certainty was gone from his heart. And somewhere on the planet below, humanity was preparing to show him just how wrong he had been about them. Admiral Lisa Martinez stood in the command center of United Earth Defense, surrounded by screens showing the entire battlefield. 3,000 Vexari ships hung in orbit. Their weapons disabled but their engines still working. In 12 hours, their technicians might find a way to remove the virus. In 12 hours, they might regain the ability to burn cities. Lisa was not going to give them 12 hours. Status of the fleet? She asked. General Tony Reyes, commander of Earth's Space Forces, pulled up a display. 27 ships in position. Admiral, they're spread out behind the alien fleet, hidden in their sensor blind spots. The aliens have no idea they're there. And the ground teams? Ready. We've got special forces units positioned near every alien landing site. When the signal comes, they'll secure the soldiers who haven't returned to their ships yet. Lisa nodded. She looked at the tactical display one more time, reviewing the plan she had spent 3 days preparing. It was risky. 27 ships against 3,000 was terrible odds by any calculation. But Lisa knew something that Commander Zorath did not. Humans did not fight fair. Give Captain Webb the green light, she ordered. Let's introduce ourselves to our guests. In space, hidden in the shadow of the moon, Captain Marcus Webb received the signal. He stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, looking at his crew. They were young, most of them. In their 20s and 30s, they had trained for this moment their entire careers. Now it was real. You all know the plan, Marcus said. We hit them fast and hard. Target their engines first. Then their bridges. We want to disable, not destroy. Humanity needs prisoners to tell the rest of the galaxy what happened here. He paused and looked around at his people. Any questions? No one spoke. They were ready. Then let's make history. Marcus turned to his helmsman. Take us in. All ships, attack formation Alpha. The USS Defiance and her 26 sister ships dropped their stealth fields and emerged from the darkness of space like ghosts becoming solid. They were small compared to the Vexari dreadnoughts, sleek and fast, built for speed rather than size. The Vexari detected them immediately. Alarms rang across Commander Zorath's bridge as sensor officers shouted warnings. Human ships, Kryn yelled. 27 of them, approaching from behind. Zorath spun toward his weapons console. Target them. Fire everything. Our weapons are still disabled, Commander. Then raise shields. Full defensive posture. The Vexari fleet activated their shields, powerful energy barriers designed to stop any weapon known to the galaxy. Lasers, plasma bolts, particle beams, nothing could penetrate Vexari shields. They had been tested against every weapon in existence. Every weapon except the one humanity was about to use. Chief Russo, Marcus said calmly, fire when ready. In the engine room of the Defiance, Natalie Russo smiled and pressed the firing button. Rounds away. The kinetic accelerator was a simple weapon. It took a solid chunk of tungsten, about the size of a baseball, and accelerated it to 15% of the speed of light. No fancy technology, no energy beams, no complicated systems, just metal moving very, very fast. The first round hit a Vexari cruiser on its port side. The shields, designed to absorb energy, did nothing. The tungsten slug passed through them like they were not there. It hit the ship's hull and kept going, punching through one side and out the other, leaving a hole the size of a car. The cruiser's engines exploded. The ship went dark and began to drift. Target destroyed, the weapons officer reported. Firing solutions on next targets. Across the human fleet, kinetic accelerators spoke in silence. There was no sound in space, no dramatic explosions, just the quiet death of ships. One by one, Vexari cruisers lost their engines, lost their power, lost their ability to fight. On his bridge, Commander Zorath watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had conquered worlds were being crippled by weapons he had dismissed as primitive. Weapons that should not work. Weapons that did not follow the rules. How? He whispered. Our shields should stop anything. Kryn was frantically checking his instruments. The weapons are not energy-based, Commander. They are physical projectiles. Our shields are not designed to stop solid objects at this velocity. We never considered anyone would use such primitive weapons. Primitive? Zorath stared at the screen, showing another ship losing power. They are killing us with primitive weapons? Yes, Commander, very effectively. The battle lasted 43 minutes. When it was over, 2,000 Vixari ships were disabled, their engines destroyed, their crews trapped in dead metal floating through space. 800 more had managed to retreat, jumping to hyperspace in panic and leaving their comrades behind. The remaining 200 surrendered, broadcasting distress signals and begging for mercy. Humanity had not lost a single ship. On the surface of Earth, the ground operation was equally successful. Special forces teams surrounded alien landing sites and offered the Vexari soldiers a choice: surrender or fight. Most surrendered. The ones who chose to fight learned quickly that human soldiers were very good at their job. In Kansas, Danny Kowalski sat on his porch with Torvax, watching military helicopters fly overhead. "Looks like the war is over," Danny said. Torvax nodded slowly. He had taken off his armor hours ago. It sat in a pile on Danny's lawn, next to the grill. "What will happen to us now?" "Don't know," Danny admitted. "Probably some kind of processing, I guess. You'll be a prisoner of war for a while. On their I taken to scream, on the Savani the fire. You'll be a prisoner of war for a while." Torvax was silent for a moment. "Your species is not what we expected." "Yeah, we get that a lot. We thought you were weak, divided, easy to conquer." Danny laughed. "We are divided. We argue about everything. But that's the thing about humans. We fight each other all the time, but the moment someone else tries to fight us, we put our differences aside." He looked at the alien sitting beside him. "You picked a fight with the wrong species, friend." Torvax thought about this. He thought about the last 3 days, about the food and the beer, and the strange kindness of these humans. He thought about his commanders and their plans, their arrogance, their certainty of victory. "Yes," he said finally, "I believe we did." In orbit, Captain Marcus Webb brought the Defiance alongside Commander Zorath's crippled flagship. The alien ship was dark, its power failing, its crew trapped inside. A human boarding team prepared to cut through the hull. Marcus watched on the screen as his Marines burned through the outer doors. He felt no joy in this victory, no pleasure in the destruction he had caused. He was a soldier, and he had done his duty. That was all. "Commander Zorath," he broadcast to the alien ship. "This is Captain Webb of the United Earth Fleet. Your weapons are disabled. Your fleet is destroyed. And you are surrounded. You can surrender and live, or you can fight and die. The choice is yours." There was a long silence. Then, finally, Zorath's voice came through the speakers. "We surrender," he said. The words sounded like they were being torn from his throat. "What are your terms?" Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "First, you're going to answer some questions. Then, we're going to have a talk about how things are going to work from now on. But first, and this is very important, we're going to get you some popcorn." It's a human tradition. Zorath did not respond. He had no words left. The war for Earth had ended in less than a week. And humanity had won without breaking a sweat. 1 week after the invasion began, Commander Zorath sat in a small room in the United Nations building in New York City. His hands were not bound, but he felt more trapped than he had ever been in his life. Through the window, he could see human children playing in a park, running and laughing as if the greatest military invasion in Vexari history had never happened. The door opened, and Admiral Lisa Martinez walked in. She was carrying a folder in one hand and a bowl of popcorn in the other. She set both on the table and sat down across from Zorath. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Zorath looked at her with empty eyes. "How do you think I feel? I have lost my fleet, my soldiers, my honor. I am a prisoner of creatures I thought were primitives." Lisa nodded and pushed the bowl toward him. "Try some popcorn. It helps." "I do not want your popcorn. Suit yourself." Lisa took a handful and began eating. "So, Let's talk about what happens next. Your government has been in contact with us. They want to negotiate for the return of you and your soldiers. Zorath's head lifted slightly. They contacted you? Oh yes. Turns out your little invasion made quite a bit of noise across the galaxy. Everyone is very interested in the species that destroyed a Vexari fleet in less than an hour. Lisa smiled. We've been getting messages from dozens of alien civilizations. Some want to trade. Some want alliances. A few want to know if we're interested in conquering their enemies for them. You defeated us with primitive weapons, Zorath said bitterly. You cheated. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Cheated? There's no cheating in war, Commander. There's winning and losing. That's it. She leaned forward. You know what your mistake was? You looked at us and saw chaos. You saw a species that fought itself. That couldn't agree on anything. That wasted its energy on internal conflicts. And you thought that made us weak. She shook her head slowly. You didn't understand that fighting is what we do. It's what we've always done. We fight over land, over ideas, over sports teams. We fight because we like fighting, and because we like it so much, we've gotten very, very good at it. Zorath was silent. He had no argument to offer. The Vexari Empire has conquered 17 civilizations, Lisa continued. You did it by being the biggest, the strongest, the most advanced. You won because no one could match your technology, your numbers, your shields. She popped another piece of popcorn into her mouth. But we didn't try to match you. We just hit you with rocks. Very fast rocks, Zorath muttered. Exactly. Sometimes the simple solution is the best one. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the children continued playing. A dog ran across the park, chasing a ball. What will you do with us? Zorath finally asked. Lisa opened her folder and pulled out a document. We're going to let you go. All of you. Your soldiers. Your ships. Everything. We'll even repair the vessels we damaged. Zorath stared at her. You will release us? Yes, on a few conditions. Name them. First, you go home and tell your empire that Earth is off limits. Not because we're scary or dangerous, but because you don't want this kind of embarrassment again. Second, you tell every other civilization you meet the same thing. Earth is not to be invaded, ever. And the third condition? Lisa smiled. You recommend us as a tourist destination. We've got some really nice beaches. Zorath could not believe what he was hearing. He had led an invasion that threatened to destroy this planet. He had killed no one, damaged nothing, achieved nothing. And now these humans were letting him go. More than that, they were treating him like a guest who had simply overstayed his welcome. Why? He asked. Why are you being so kind to us? We tried to conquer you. Lisa looked at him with something like pity in her eyes. Commander, we've had thousands of wars throughout our history. We've fought over everything you can imagine, and plenty of things you can't. And you know what we've learned? Wars end. Enemies become friends. The people you fight today might be the people who save your life tomorrow. She pushed the popcorn bowl closer to him. We're not going to make an enemy out of you. That's a waste of time and energy. We'd rather make a friend. So take your people home, heal your wounds, and maybe think about coming back someday for a vacation. Like I said, we have nice beaches. Zorath reached out slowly and took a piece of popcorn. He put it in his mouth and chewed. It was salty and buttery and unlike anything he had ever tasted. It was delicious. This is very good, he admitted. I know. There's a place in Chicago that makes the best popcorn in the world. You should try it before you leave. Chicago. That is the city I tried to destroy. Yep. Zorath felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as shame. I am sorry. For what I attempted to do. Lisa waved her hand. Don't worry about it. You're not the first person to try to destroy Chicago, and you won't be the last. We're used to it. 3 days later, the Vexari fleet left Earth. Their ships were repaired, their soldiers were fed, and their commander was a changed person. Zorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, Watching the blue planet grow smaller in his viewport, Kryn approached him carefully. "Commander, what do we tell the Empire?" Zorath thought for a long moment. He thought about the battle, about the defeat, about the strange humans who had beaten him with fast rocks and friendship. He thought about Danny Kowalski and his barbecue, about Admiral Martinez and her popcorn, about a species that turned war into entertainment and enemies into guests. "We tell them the truth," Zorath said finally. "Earth is not to be invaded. Not because they are dangerous, although they are. Not because they are powerful, although they are that too. We do not invade Earth because they are absolutely insane, and they have excellent food." Kryn nodded slowly. "Should I include that in the official report?" "Yes, word for word." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, a final transmission reached them from Earth. It was a human voice, cheerful and warm. "Thanks for visiting Earth. We hope you enjoyed your stay. Please leave a review and tell your friends. Come back anytime, but maybe call ahead next time instead of showing up with 3,000 warships. Safe travels." Commander Zorath listened to the message and felt something he had never felt before. He felt like laughing. These humans, these crazy, friendly, dangerous humans, they had beaten him in every way possible, and somehow he did not hate them for it. He almost liked them. "Perhaps," he said to himself, "I will come back someday, for the beaches." And somewhere on Earth, Admiral Lisa Martinez sat in her office, eating popcorn and reading the latest reports. Alien civilizations were reaching out from across the galaxy, curious about the planet that had turned back the Vexari. Trade negotiations were beginning. Alliance proposals were flooding in. Humanity's place in the universe had changed forever. Lisa smiled and reached for another handful of popcorn. It had been a good week. Outside her window, the sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Children were playing in the streets, dogs were barking, people were going about their lives as if nothing had happened. And that, Lisa thought, was the most human thing of all. The ability to face an existential threat, defeat it, and then go right back to living as if it were just another Tuesday. Because to humans, it was the end.